Hello and welcome to the second edition of VH2AM. I'm David Brown. It was great to hear the response to our first effort. The comments were very positive and helpful. Do you know all the directors of the NRMA's Board of Management heard the tape? And also a range of our managers throughout the organisation heard it as well. You know, they all love the idea, and they particularly appreciated hearing the hints and information from our road patrols. I must add that I also use those handy hints on a number of radio programs. But we are always open to more response from you, so that we can include it in the next tape, such as the handy hints. And so we'd encourage you to use that tear-off portion of the cover card of the cassette for input to future editions of this particular tape. One of the comments we received from our patrols was that they would like to hear more technical matters. Now, we can do that, but rather than generate the ideas we think are appropriate, why not you tell us what you want to hear? And as a start, in this tape, Mark Williams from our Technical Services Training Department. He's going to tell us some of the things they're doing, and also a few handy hints as well. We'll also hear from our Chief Executive Officer, Ray Willing, about the latest on the proposal to share the future of the NRMA through a share issue. And Adrian Rees, our General Manager for Financial Services, gives us a rundown on what the share market is all about and what some of those unusual terms they use really mean. Richard Cox gives us the latest on manufacturers' assistance schemes, including Network Q, a program for used cars. Chris Finn, the Zone Manager for Western Zone, is preparing the next Road Service Seminar, so he'll tell us how it's going and what subjects he hopes the seminars will cover. And we'll hear some road stories from Gary O'Callaghan, that famous Sydney radio personality, who's a great admirer of the NRMA. So we've got a lot to do, let's not muck about, let's get into it now. Well, you know, it's been 2 months since the announcement of the proposal to issue shares in the NRMA, and we've seen a lot of things around on the media and that, but I thought I'd come and find out what's happening with it, and I'm in the office of Ray Willing, and we'll talk about it now. Hello, Ray.
Hello, David.
As I say, we've seen a lot in the media, and I think some pretty good press, but what have we heard from the members of the community and our own members out there about the float?
Well, it's the most exciting thing the NRMA has done in its history, David, and I guess the most we're seeing from members and our staff in particular is an air of excitement about it.
Yeah.
Most are saying they want to be involved. Most are indicating to us that they're very keen to become involved in a company that's a shareholding-based company.
Right. And so do they have their own issues? Are they raising a few points? What would be an example?
Well, the majority of issues being raised by people is entitlement.
Right.
And how many shares will I get? How long have I been a member?
Yeah.
How many insurance policies have I got?
Right.
And what entitlement do I get for one insurance policies against 5 or 10 insurance policies? So those sorts of questions are coming up everywhere. And there are people with worries as well, issues of takeover,
right.
Issues of pensioners, issues of
Let's have a look
tax.
at a few of those. We haven't finalised the entitlement issue yet, have we? We're just looking at the numbers and what that means.
Well, we're close to determining what it should be, but we've got a few, if you like, detailed things to sort out, and we've got a letter going out to staff at the end of this month and to members at the beginning of June,
right.
which will outline how we see things as far as entitlement is concerned.
Oh, good. I'll come back to that in a while, but let's take one of the others you're raising there. Takeover. Could the NRMA be taken over? I think a few people have raised that as a point.
Yes, well, a couple of things there. We'll almost certainly get approval from the Stock Exchange to limit any particular interest via our articles to a percentage. Now, I won't at this stage say what that is, but we're likely to get a limit of some sort. So we're working on that right now. But with 1.8 million members and therefore about 1.8 million shareholders, that should be enough to protect us against takeovers, because most of our members are very loyal. They've stayed with us for many, many years, and we'll be doing things to make sure they stay even longer when they become shareholders.
And encouraging them even further.
Yes,
to do
indeed.
That, yeah. Because you'd have to convince hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people to buy their individual shares, if you could, to try and get a controlling interest.
That's right. We're confident most of our members will put their shares, as it were, in the bottom right-hand drawer and keep them forever.
Yeah. And of course, this isn't just a public float, is it? It's not as if there are a bulk lot of shares that could be available for someone to buy up.
No, one of the big things I think we're going to have is a greater demand for shares that will have shares being offered. So that's great. It's great for the share price. But we'll be trying to restrict the shares to members and people who've had an interest in the NRMA for a long time.
What about some of the other issues? Taxation has come up, and particularly pensioners.
Yeah, well, the pensioner issue in particular has been one that we've been wrestling with. Each pensioner has a different situation than any other pensioner. I think the key thing about this, so as far as pensioners are concerned, generally speaking, is that they'll all be getting free shares of $500 or $1,000 as a minimum, and in most cases they'll all be better off.
That's good, isn't it? You've been in contact with government over this?
Well, we've been in contact with government, yes, a number of government departments. We're also doing a lot of work with ACOS and pensioner groups to help work through the detail of pensioners.
Right, because is there anything they can compare this with? I mean, government probably hasn't been confronted with this type of thing before, hasn't it?
Government's never had this problem before. It's a nice problem to have, isn't it, David? And I think it's best summarised by saying that most people will be better off. Some of the higher asset groups who are pensioners may be not so well off at the margin, but they'll be few in number.
But they still be better off, likely to be better off. It's just that
they'll certainly be better off in those situations if they, for example, can find a way of gifting their shares to somebody else.
Yes, of course, to a charity or to anything.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you said earlier, and I'd like just to touch on that, the next steps are a letter out to our staff and to our members, and that will show what? Well,
that will show the years of membership and the number of policies they've got. In fact, it's intended to say, well, you're a member for X years and you've got a policy. In fact, it will show whether they have one policy or not, not number of policies.
Yeah, it's going to promote a lot of discussion. I guess that no doubt our patrols will get more than the odd question.
I think our patrols will get every question there is. And I think it's important that patrols understand what's in the letters, and we'll be showing copies of the letters to patrols beforehand.
Yeah.
And you can bet that on the road, many of our members will be asking questions of patrols. So they'll have to be the experts.
Yeah, but equally they don't have to try and take it to the nth degree, maybe just to leave the member with some confidence, but then they can pass on to the hotline?
Yes, I think patrols, it would be helpful if patrols outlined to members exactly what the process is and did give a view which was a positive one to members. But there will be a hotline and a telephone number that members can ring, and our patrols will be asked to refer our members to that hotline.
Yeah, sure. And that's been going for a while. And, of course, we also have the one for staff themselves that they can ring up as well.
That's right.
Now that we've done this, now that we've done a bit of the work around there, how does it stand as a concept, as a proposal, the floating of the share? Is there any doubts been raised in your mind? Or
No, in fact, not at all. The more I go through this process, the more I'm confident that we should have done it some time ago.
Right.
And I think if you look at what's happening across the world and look at opportunities opening up for companies, the more we can free ourselves of our old mutual structure, the better off we'll all be.
Equally, people might be afraid that we might lose that thing that's made the NRMA great in terms of this change. Do you think we're going to potentially lose that?
The NRMA has been made great for a number of reasons, David. I don't think one of them is our mutual structure.
Right.
One of them certainly is our road service and our service ethic. Another is our research capacity and our ability to handle large numbers of transactions. That's what's made us strong and what has made us as good as we are. The mutual structure hasn't.
Right, so it'd be crazy to even contemplate anything that would take away from the great service level we give, and that's been our way to success.
Yes, the key success factors in the NRMA, I think, have been the service ethic and the ability to analyse large numbers and deal with large numbers.
So this is good for us within the NRMA and for our members and that. I guess it's almost, well, it is significant in terms of the whole Australian environment.
Well, it's very different, I think, a very different transaction worldwide, let alone Australia. Very, very different. We know of one similar transaction that's occurred over in the UK, but it is a very exciting proposition, one which will change us significantly over time and give us a lot more opportunities over time. For example, in the future, if we want to expand by way of acquisition, having a shareholding base will allow us to do that more easily than a mutual structure.
It's a good springboard into other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And of course it's giving everyone in Australia the chance, well not everyone, but a lot of people in Australia the chance to own some shares and feel part of the corporate or business environment.
That's right, but don't forget, David, that most of our members are going to keep their shares, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And that's good.
Yeah, indeed.
And I think there's been a lot of talk about that. It's more of an ownership part of it.
Yes.
Very positive.
Yeah.
Ray, thanks for clearing all that up. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, David.
This is VH2AM, giving you the drum on what's happening in the NRMA.
Well, it's been several years since Nissan introduced their road service scheme for their new car buyers in Australia. Well, the NRMA has also forged some links with manufacturers for special service packages. How are they going and what impact are they making? Well, to answer these questions, let's talk to our General Manager, Richard Cox. Good day, Richard.
How are you, David?
Good. Now, has the Nissan scheme reduced the number of people joining the NRMA?
No, in fact, our membership growth this year is going through the roof. We're experiencing a good growth, which I think is partly due to the end of the recession and partly due to the fact that the share issue and people are really keen to have their membership and keeping it up to date.
But we've also, too, kept a tab on whether they're interested in these other schemes as well. Are we asking that question?
Yes, every now and then we have a look at the membership file just to see how people who own Nissans and General Motors cars are, and we find that people are hanging on to their membership. It seems to be pretty important that people keep up their years of service, and that is the link which is keeping them paying their membership fee despite the fact that they can get their road service through these other schemes.
Yeah, of course. Now, how does their Nissan or other schemes work? How do they do it?
Well, they contract opposition road service providers for a fee, and that service comes obviously with the car, so there's no sort of transactions or decision taken by the person buying the car to have or not have road service.
Yeah, but what sort of service then do they provide on the road? Is it equivalent of the NRMA service?
No, when we're talking about the WorldCare, the primary opposition to us, who provide the road service in Nissan, you get basically four things. That's the flat tyre, the flat battery, the run out of fuel, or the keys locked in the car. For any other problem, it's a tow job, which we don't think is being very customer focused.
I guess people must get a bit of a shock when they think that they might just get their car fixed up to get going to find it being towed off.
Yes, in fact, it's very interesting. We had some feedback of a case in Launceston, down in Tassie, where a lady called their Nissan number for road service, and as she said, a deteriorated tow truck turned up, and she wanted the van, like the van that was depicted in the television advertisements. And the guy said, well, if you want a smart vehicle like that, you better call the RACT. And she said, I'm not a member. He said, well, why don't you join? So there she was. She joined and got the service with a good vehicle.
Yeah, that presentation, that expectation of someone with authority and knowledge and presented well rather than necessarily a second afterthought person with grease under their fingernails is part of the issue you're saying. It's part of a good service that people are starting to expect.
That's right. Well, the automobile clubs in Australia have set about setting some tremendously high standards, and those standards are now very, very important as they're an intrinsic part of the service we provide.
There also the story about the child locked in the car.
Yes, there's an interesting one. This, I think, was in a shopping centre around Caringbah, where they rang the Nissan number, and they said, look, it'll take us about probably an hour before we can get there, and when we do get there, we'll take you home to get your second set of keys. And the woman obviously was distraught because she had her baby locked in the car. Yeah. Again, the advice was ring the NRMA, and of course, I think we had that child out of the car within 8 minutes of receiving the call.
8 minutes of receiving the call.
That's right, yep.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? I mean, that's the sort of thing I think people expect. Maybe a bit later, too, we're encouraging any of the patrols, if they have a few stories to tell, to send them in, because it all helps our sort of planning and understanding of what's happening, their frontline feedback.
Glad you mentioned that, David, because I think it's a very important aspect of this, because we've never had competition to road service before, and we're starting to learn a lot about it. And one of the great things about trying to target the opposition, to look at ways around it and how we can improve, to compete equally with them, and to find out what they're doing, we have to rely on feedback. And I think if any of the patrols have got stories or feedback that they believe is of importance to us, we would love to hear from them.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what schemes are we actually running for manufacturers ourselves? Because we're into that as well, aren't we?
Yes, we've had a few. I think it's a great disappointment that we lost out to the opposition with BMW, but that again shows you how competitive it is, and we've got to keep working hard at it. But the really nice part about what we've got is we've got a large slab of cars coming to us from General Motors. That's been expanded with the Isuzu range being brought into it to go along with it. We've still got the membership scheme with Lexus, which is the prestige vehicle, and we've got a new one that has just come in, which is called Network Q, which is a membership for 1 year going to a selection of quality used cars being sold by the General Motors dealer network.
So is that any car that they sell as a used car, or is it only Holden cars that they sell?
It's only some of their Holden cars that meet some very stringent criteria. In other words, General Motors dealers are doing a multi-point check of their vehicle, declaring these as being a high-quality used car, and it qualifies to become one of the Network Q cars.
So if I buy an old bomb HQ Holden, they might not give it to me.
I don't think that'd be one of them, David.
How long will that last? How long is that?
It's a membership for 1 year. Our contract is on a year basis, and we'll be carefully monitoring this one.
Right, and each person who gets a car gets that service level for a year as well.
They get full membership, so they get everything, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Are we likely to be involved in any other companies, and will we sort of tailor a scheme to suit each of those?
Yes, we'd like to be in the position where we can do whatever the manufacturer wants, because they will be the customers. Going down that path, we've made quite a significant presentation to Mitsubishi, who are showing some interest in developing their own customer care program. We haven't got the results of that, but we understand the presentation was well received.
Oh, good.
At Ford, we've talked to them and made a presentation to them, but Ford at this stage have kept their prestige vehicles with the opposition, but of course they're monitoring whether they will expand this into their complete range of vehicles. With Toyota, we continue discussions with Toyota, but Toyota aren't interested in this program to date. And with the other smaller companies, we just keep up the phone calls, keep chatting to them, because what we'd like to do, and I'll put it this way, I don't think this is a business we want to go and actively promote for sale.
Right.
Because we would prefer that they had their membership with the NRMA, rather than having it through or disguised through a manufacturer.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, and the manufacturer wants to go down that path, I'd like to think that we were the first people they asked.
Yes.
And that's the positioning that I'd like to think we're putting ourselves in. We're there, available, we're open, we're discussing, but we're not trying to talk the manufacturers into their own programs.
Right, okay. So do you think these schemes reduce the image of NRMA membership if they're being offered either by us or through the company, whether we provide it or someone else provides it? Do you think we're undermining that image?
Not really undermining the image. Although in some cases people perceive it as being a second-rate service because it comes free, but it's probably having some impact on the attractiveness of the package, mainly because they're questioning, why should I keep my membership up if I'm getting exactly the same road service, and this is the case for the General Motors people.
Yes.
Why keep up the membership when I get exactly the same road service through buying the car? And it's really up to us to sell the benefits of membership that are on top of it, in terms of the open roads and the free advisory services and the free directories and accommodation booking service, those wonderful other attributes of membership,
yes,
which add the value.
And of course you keep, as you said at the very beginning, you keep that continuity of membership, which is something people have a little bit of pride in, but of course also in terms of 25 years clubs and so on, has a long-term benefit for them.
That's right. We've actually just tightened the rules up because there's now some financial gain by having years of service through the 25-year club and the 50-year benefits. And there could be other programs down the path where we make it attractive for all members,
right, yeah,
based on their years of service. Now, in the past, we've been pretty liberal with the way we've handed these around and transferred it, but now we've got to, because it's important and it's got some financial
yes,
connotations to it, we're going to have to tighten the rules, and we've just done that so that people will genuinely build up the years of service.
And sometimes it's worked the other way too, where people have changed circumstances and taken out what is a new membership, and in the past we've tended to sort of say, oh, well, let's start from year one.
Yeah.
Now you want to resolve at that point just how long they have been a member, a credible member, for that list of how, to keep the number of years clearly on their little card.
That's exactly the point, and it is going to be an important thing, and we hope it locks people in to the organisation and makes them a loyal member.
Richard, that's great. Thanks very much again, and perhaps we might just emphasise that if any of our patrols do have any good stories about what's happening with the other services out there, or any other comment they want to make, certainly they should fill in the little card that's available in the cassette folder for this VH2AM and send it in, and I know you would be particularly interested in seeing their comments.
Yes, anecdotal evidence, any other important points which come up with their conversations or the patrols discussions with the members would be most important to us.
Well, I know, yes, you are interested to hear those things, and any of their comments are taken further and dealt with very carefully. Richard, thanks very much for your time. Well, here we are out at the Technical Services Training Centre down at Villawood, and I'm talking with Mark Williams, who's the Training Development Consultant for the Patrols. G'day, Mark.
G'day, David.
Now, you have two consultants in training development, don't you?
Yes, the other consultant that we have is Malcolm Trenfield, and Malcolm's the consultant for our vehicle inspection people.
Oh, good. And they're, as we said earlier, they're going to be getting this tape as well now, and that's great. Now, I was having a look at some of your publications. Road Service Technical Guide. How long has that been around?
We've had that out for a few years now, David, and we've actually been marketing that outside the NRMA.
But you've also got a loose leaf folder as well. Is that more up-to-date information coming in?
Well, that's right, David. The purpose of the folder is to store all the current model vehicles that are available. The previous book that you were talking about, the little handbook, goes back to the early 1980s.
Oh, right. So this is up-to-date information. Will that ever become a book?
Oh, for sure, David. Eventually that particular folder will fill up, so we will have to make volume 2.
Oh, good. And you've got another one that I'm particularly interested in some of the radio work that we do, and that's Hints and Tips. What's that book going to be?
Yeah, well, currently, David, we're finalising this particular book that you're talking about, and it's going to be called Automotive Hints and Tips. It's basically designed as a quick reference book to help the guys out as much as possible out in the field.
So will that be sorted by make of car, will it?
Yes, it'll be along it's very much in the similar lines as the Automotive Technical Guide, very much in that same order.
And so be able to, more practical little tips that we might be able to sort of convey to the public or use ourselves out on the road.
Oh, yes, I think it'll be enormous benefit to the guys out in the field, both in patrol and the vehicle inspection area.
When's that coming out?
Looks like it'll be out late July, early August.
Oh, be not far away. I look forward to that. Well, Mark, talking about hints, I was down in the car park in head office the other day where they had a road test vehicle in. It was an Audi 90. And I sat in it and I tried to get it out of gear and I couldn't. Now, apparently they have some system of locking in park. Does that cause any problems, I suppose, to new drivers or any other sort of problems along the way?
Yes, it certainly would be a problem, David, I suppose, if you're unaware of it. Yes, they do have a system where you actually have to turn the ignition key to the on position and put your foot on the brake pedal itself to be able to disengage the T-bar out of park.
Is that a safety issue, is it?
Yes, along the lines of safety and I suppose security as well.
Right.
But more so safety, where you've actually got your foot on the brake itself when you take it out of park and through the gears.
Foolproof.
Well,
only I was the fool that wasn't quite proof enough for. But does it cause any problems?
Funny you actually say that as well, David. We have had a problem with one of those recently. It was the Audi 90 S model, and it was the 2.3 litre E version. And same situation, it was locked in park. The member actually called us out the first time, and the first patrol was unable to actually rectify the problem, in other words, get it out of park. The second patrol, another patrol was called out, and he was unable to rectify the problem.
Even though they obviously had the key in and foot on the brake?
Yes, the patrols both patrols went through the normal procedures, and they couldn't rectify the problem at that particular time. However, the cause of the problem turned out to be a blown fuse, and that fuse was located in a fuse box in the engine compartment near the driver's side of the windscreen.
Right, so there was some form of breakdown, and of course it just locked the whole thing up.
Yes, it's a peculiar circuit, David. It's an electrical circuit where obviously the ignition has to be on, the foot has to be on the brake, and by doing both of these things, you'll energise a solenoid which allows the gear lever to be removed from park. Unfortunately, there's a fuse. One of those fuses it protects that particular circuit.
So if any one of those fuses went, could that cause a similar problem?
Well, you'll find that only fuse numbers 3, 4 and 6 actually are in that particular circuit. So I'd certainly be checking those 3 fuses if I did strike that problem again.
Oh, so they're actually numbered. Are they in the same spot?
Yes, they're all in the same spot, and they're quite clearly numbered, so the guy shouldn't have any problems finding them.
Well, great little hint to look out for. Mark, we'll come back to you later in the program, but for that first one, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave.
This is the end of Side 1. Please turn the tape over now.